rights.
That's how you get promoted.
What?
That's how you get promoted. To like, what is it, sheriff now? Sheriff.
Yeah, they got the riot squad outside for us.
Wasting more of our taxpayer dollars. I just, at least they're here, not like oppressing people.
Yeah.
I mean, they are here oppressing people, but it's already on
They're
record.
trying to intimidate.
Yeah.
Because there's no real reason for it. It's a waste of resources, as we know.
But like I said, I'd rather them wasting their resource here right now than out there.
Yeah.
This is already happening.
Should be arrested soon. Right?
You say Sununu?
Soon.
Gesundheit.
Just like that.
Quick question. What witnesses do you have present?
All of them, but the guy who's in Europe.
Okay. Okay. And I just moved his brother away.
The guy who we identified. Yeah. The arresting officer. He's not here.
He fled the country?
I think they're going, isn't it?
I'm supposed to be
He's supposed to be going first.
Oh, yeah. No, it's not. He was just.
Oh, that one.
I thought somebody else has their trial before mine.
I have an 8 o'clock.
He has trial.
Oh, you're eight. Okay.
He has trial at 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
8:30.
He's scheduled for 8, so let's do him at 8. Let's do them all in order. Remember last time I was here, I had to do mine backwards?
Anybody else?
I had to do them in order. Right, DeCroche? Yeah.
I don't remember.
Of course you don't remember, because you got convenient memory, just like all these other officers. You guys never remember nothing when it counts, right? Don't tell me to hold it down, you're just gonna make it worse. Okay? Thank you.
I'll fuck you like you. So just finishing what he's saying. Yeah.
It's not on the market. Okay, let's go out and check with Burlington.
So what does this mean?
It might have got continued. I have no idea. She could tell you.
Oh, fun times.
What happened, bro?
Not on the docket.
You're not on the docket. Oh, conveniently, again.
Check the case file, man.
Sure. Wanna come be my bodyguard?
Yeah, the state doesn't pay witnesses.
Let's take a look.
Sign in, this person will sign in.
Okay.
Remember they did that to me? They're like, oh, we don't know nothing. Trying to remember if that was here. I think it was.
Or was that?
That was the one where they didn't, is that where that was? Oh yeah, it was, because the legislative office building.
Got all dressed up for nothing.
I know, right?
Did you call out of work today too?
No, I actually had the day off.
You did get up earlier than he would have though.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part right there.
Beauty sleep. I need all I can get.
Lots of it.
Grab your one,
Okay, thank you.
No, I'm not sure.
Did you get a signal?
No, I'm not.
No.
See, nothing at the house, right?
I didn't get
Yes, we
Good?
want to figure out where we're supposed to go.
Which courtroom?
Which courtroom? Because we just discovered we're in the wrong room.
Okay.
Second with everybody in there?
Yeah.
Look at they list their bail bondsmen over here. That's interesting. Because that's like bail bondsmen in many states are not supposed to advertise in the court. In the
Oh,
court,
really?
yeah.
Interesting.
Yep, it's conflict. But these, if that's the only registered ones, then there's really no conflict, right?
Case not been rescheduled yet. We just got a justice. Was continued. I will give a copy of this.
So how would I know this?
You wouldn't till you came here today. You
Okay.
wouldn't know.
So why not?
Thank you.
Because it
What?
was just signed off by the judge on 5-3.
On 5/3, so he'll be getting it in the mail after the fact. And what was the reason for the continuance to begin
I'm
with?
gonna give you a copy, okay?
Okay.
So you can read it and then you'll understand.
Alright.
No, I want to.
Real quick question, what courtroom is?
Wi-Fi sucks with the
Yeah.
trying to stream.
Stream court.
Yep, can't do it.
Is it a?
So when, I have no idea when the next one is.
No, it has not been rescheduled.
Yep. Real quick question, what courtroom is?
Wi-Fi sucks with the
Yeah.
trying to stream.
Stream court.
Yep, can't do it.
Is it a?
So when, I have no idea when the next one is.
No, it has not been rescheduled.
Yep.
Prosecutor when you change positions. Who the fuck do that?
I would never have known that.
I've never heard of that.
I thought going to the court is the proper judges.
Oh, the judge is already.
Shitbag that's in here, by the way, that prosecutor, he's in here.
All right, this is starting. This is, let's go up, it's live.
I'm not going back in.
State your name, please, and spell your last name for the record.
Cindy Feenstra, Feenstra.
And where do you live?
I live at 72 Hemlock Road, in Newfields.
How long do you live there?
It's about 25 years.
And your next door neighbor at 71 Hemlock Court, who's that?
Cindy.
And in December of 2020, I believe, oh, wow. Yeah, December 2020, December 28th, was there an incident at that area at that night about 7 o'clock?
There was.
What was that?
There was, well, excuse me, I have bad allergies. The protesters had been coming regularly since around Thanksgiving. They had just been there the day before on Sunday. We had gotten word from neighbor that saw something on social media that they're planning to come back on Monday evening for a candlelight vigil. So that's kind of what we were expecting. I remember it was around dinner time. I don't know if it was 6 or 6:30 or 5:30, but in that hour, it was dark. My kitchen window directly faces the country store path. It's a path that separates literally my property and the Sununus. The dog I had just let out, he was barking hysterical. I opened the door, and he saw a lot of commotion on the path. There were no candles, there was no candlelight vigil that I saw. I believe they had headlamps on, right in front of my kitchen window, so I called, I just said, I called dispatch in the market, I believe our town hall was closed, I just said that they're here, doesn't appear to be a candlelight vigil, they're on the path, they're arguing, I don't know who they're arguing with, they're shouting, brought my dog in, I turned off the lights, cause you can see directly into my house, it was dark, that's kind of what I remember.
Was the noise that they were making disturbing?
I mean, it was arguing, yeah, it was uncomfortable. We didn't know why they were there. We didn't know what their intentions were. We didn't know if they were armed or not armed. And literally, they were probably within 30 feet of my kitchen.
Yes, thank you. Do you say, is your house to the right of Sununu's?
If you're in the circle, I'm to the right, yes. If you're in the circle facing our properties, there's only 3 houses, it's the end of the cul-de-sac. There's the Drosky's, there's the Sununu's, and then there's us.
Thank you. And just to be clear, the Sununu's, one of those being Chris Sununu, the governor of New Hampshire. And if I may approach, I'm just trying to clarify, she's the top 14. Sununu's 13. Sununu's 1.
No, that's the government. That's the government, that's right.
I think this is it. Okay. Those approved, that's fine. Here, if I may approach.
Yes.
So I have a plot plan of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So lot 15, this will be yours.
I don't know the lot number, I mean, yeah, so there's the circle.
Yeah.
This would be my house and Amy's property.
Okay. And so between,
The country store would be, I don't know where's the path on here? Oh, sidewalk,
presumably
yeah, right here, yeah, so my property and my dog fence goes exactly up to the path. The path literally divides the properties.
okay, and did you say you had a fence on your property?
Electric fence for my dog, it's not fenced in, no.
Okay. Do you know if there are any no trespassing signs anywhere on your property?
No,
Okay.
I don't post no.
Okay.
It's an easeway that town uses, it's joggers and people walking their dogs and kids going to school, it's not a place where anybody's ever congregated.
Okay, thank you. And so your testimony was, there's a group of people making disturbing noises and arguing?
Arguing, yeah,
Okay. Were you in your house the whole time?
yes, we were,
Okay.
yeah, this Monday night, we were
Okay. And what time does this occur?
around dinner time, I would say, I think I was cleaning up for dinner, so maybe around 6, I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, and this was late December?
Yes, it was, yeah, it was a Monday, because they had been there the day
Okay.
before,
And it's dark outside?
yes.
Okay. Did you at any point see, person standing next to me?
I don't remember who was out there, to me, it was a group of people, there was increasingly more state troopers and commotion.
Can you testify you couldn't tell who was yelling?
No, I didn't know,
All right.
no.
Thank you, nothing further.
Read it right.
Nothing, no.
Thank you.
I'm good.
Sit down, yes. May this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
City Call Trooper Tyler Dodd. You look, Thank you. One of your witnesses.
Nobody told me to stay outside.
I don't know that I,
Well, he's on your list.
If he's on your list and you're gonna call him, then he needs to be
okay,
sequestered.
yeah, you have to leave. I don't know that I was gonna call you for anything, but
That's,
in case, I'll leave it up to you. If you think you want me to be calling you at some point, you have
I
to
don't,
leave
it's,
it.
it's not about me wanting anything, it's about whether or not it's necessary, and you might decide it is, you might decide it isn't.
I
give it-
would prefer you leave in case it becomes necessary to have you be a witness.
Alright, and I'll leave this going and I'll bring this out in case I need it for backup to document tyranny, intimidation tactics.
What's going on?
tyranny?
No, I mean, where are my witnesses? Where's Dodd?
Yes, if you want. Yeah, you want to testimony.
Go stand by the chair and raise your right hand. This is not a witness, he's a trainee.
Good morning.
Raise your hand, swear affirm testimony you give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I do. Have a seat. State your name and spell your last name for the court record, please.
Trooper Tyler Dodds, DODDS.
How are you employed?
Work for the New Hampshire State Police Troop A,
How long have you been a state trooper?
2016.
And were you working for the New Hampshire State Police on December 28th of 2020?
I was.
And what were you doing around 6 o'clock that evening?
That evening I was asked to respond to Newfields in preparation for a scheduled vigil event, which was hosted by a group known as Absolute Defiance. It was a protest group that has appeared at the governor's house prior to that evening. They had planned to be present there, and we were asked to be on standby status for that.
Okay. And so, did you go there?
I did.
Did anyone show up?
They did.
Go ahead.
I don't remember offhand the specific time, but shortly after 7 o'clock, I believe, a vehicle rolled in with 3 individuals. One of whom was Mr. Skylar Bennett, who was a gentleman seated at the defense table.
In between the two gentlemen?
Correct, one with the beard.
Where's the man? Was identified the defendant as Skylar Bennett.
So, like,
So what did you do when they showed up?
Myself, and I was accompanied by Officer Heinrich Strand at the time of Newfields. Gave it a few minutes, and then we went and approached the vehicle to speak with the occupants. The vehicle had come around and parked in the center of the cul-de-sac loop in front of 71 Hemlock Court, which was the address, to my knowledge, that was listed on the protest or the vigil's description. Vehicle had parked there, which is, of course, Governor Snood's residence, which is the reason for the vigil, supposedly. We made contact with the individuals in the car and spoke to them about their plans. They indicated that they were there for the vigil, had helped plan it, and they indicated that they intended to host that vigil. We explained to them that based on the guidance we had received by the Attorney General's office, that this vigil would constitute picketing under the statute, reflecting picketing in the town of Newfields. We had copies of that statute printed to offer them, and also made sure that they were aware that it had been passed.
May I approach the witness, John?
yes.
Recognize that?
I do.
What is that?
That is the town of Newfields picketing ordinance.
That's the one you handed the people that showed up?
Copy of it, correct.
Any objection?
No objection.
Admitted as states one.
So did you give a copy to the defendant?
They didn't accept any. They did indicate, nobody in the vehicle accepted any printed copy, but they did all indicate that they're familiar with the ordinance.
Okay. So what happens after you tell them they can't protest?
There was some question back and forth about what the limitations of that statute was, most of which I deferred to the state AG's office, and that you're gonna have to reach out to them for clarification, but my understanding is any repeated passage in front of or remaining in front of any private dwelling would constitute picketing under the statute, as described in the printed copies. They indicated that somebody in the vehicle, I believe it was Gerhard, which is another occupant of the vehicle, indicated that they would change the vigil and make it a march, and they asked about what limitations were if they chose to march instead. And my only explanation for those was I reiterated any repeated passage in front of the same residence would be an issue, but if they wish to do a march, that I didn't see a problem with that. They asked if they could keep their car in the area, and I explained that if it became an issue, I talked to them, but that would likely be okay. At that point, we returned, and instead of pulling over or parking in the area like they had indicated, the vehicle essentially parked in the same location. I believe Mr. Staples, Frank Staples, who's the third occupant of that vehicle, and Mr. Bennett exited the car and began standing in that center of that cul-de-sac loop, remaining in essentially the same location.
Okay. And this is in front of?
71 Hemlock Court. It's in the cul-de-sac circle in the center of that Hemlock Court at the end of the road.
Okay. So they get out of the car, they're just standing there, then what do you do?
So we waited a few more minutes. I had returned to where I was, kind of off the opposite side of the circle. And during this time, I believe more vehicles were beginning to show up with more people that were arriving to attend this event. After a few minutes, it became clear that they were stepping off or directing anybody to march or anything like that. So we reapproached specifically Mr. Staples and Mr. Bennett, who had already been warned. At that point, they said they decided not to do a march and that they decided that they were going to hang out. Their terminology, we're going to hang out at that location. At that time, Officer Strand cited Mr. Bennett under the statute for remaining in front of the residence.
Violation of the town ordinance?
Correct.
Okay. Did he hand
So he indicated that he would be cited in the statute. There was quite a lengthy back and forth getting information to put on the summons. During that time, Mr. Staples and Mr. Bennett kind of debated the constitutionality of the law, and there was a lot of back and forth. So it took some time to get that done. There was a group of other people who arrived and gathered around to listen and participate in that conversation. At the conclusion of the summons being filled out, he was presented with it in hand.
Oh, now what happened?
At that point, the entire group was warned under the statute that they could not remain there under the picketing ordinance. At that point, the group largely started walking. They said they were going to do a march instead. So, again, I don't remember the exact time. They stepped off on this march and they went down the road a very short ways, and in less than 4 minutes, the group was again returned, quote unquote, back to the area of 71 Hemlock Court at the circle. They then proceeded around the circle, stopping briefly at the bottom of the pathway that connects the circle to Main Street in Newfields. There's a path that goes adjacent to the home at 71 Hemlock Court. And then they proceeded up the walkway towards Main Street in Newfields, again passing 71 Hemlock Court, roughly 16 yards off the side of the house on this pathway, where they were also stopping and slowing. And at that point, the group was detained, and everybody in the group was issued a summons. At that time, Mr. Bennett was still among the group. He had been told explicitly when he was served the summons the first time, upon receipt of the summons, you're ordered to leave, otherwise you will be arrested for criminal trespass. Again, he was still with the group, had not left, and he was therefore arrested for criminal trespass. When he was arrested, he began screaming obscenities, shouting, and shouting his opposition to his arrest and statements against the governor.
Where was he when he was shouting?
This was adjacent to the house on the pathway, to the right side of 71 Hemlock Court that goes to Main Street.
In between the governor's house and the neighbor's house?
Yes.
Were they in that vicinity, or were they further up or further down?
They were on the pathway adjacent to the residence, so kind of further up the pathway.
Okay. So you said he was yelling obscenities? What was he yelling?
I couldn't provide any quotations, but he was unhappy about being arrested, unhappy about the police taking action against him and on behalf of the governor, or to take action in general. Things of that nature.
Okay. And did you have any further involvement with the defendant?
No. Excuse me, I stand corrected. I did proceed and assist with his booking after he was arrested. I remained on scene for a short time and then responded to Newmarket Police Station, where he was in the process of being booked by another trooper, and I stood back for that process, which was uneventful.
All right. To your knowledge, did whoever got a town ordinance, did they leave after they got their town ordinance?
He was the first one to receive the town ordinance, and it was explicitly explained, as I said, that if he did not leave, he would be arrested for criminal trespass on the ordinance. After this time, there were more people cited, but it was later on the pathway, and everybody after that, except for him, left upon receiving that summons.
Okay. Do you recall when he was on the pathway, if he was told to leave again?
Everyone on the pathway was at that time detained, and served with the summons before they could leave. He had already been again warned to leave.
Okay.
There was one other observation, if you don't mind, Chair. Was just that as we were speaking to Mr. Bennett, the first time outside the vehicle, I did notice an odor of alcohol in his breath, and I also observed these.
What is your response to relevance?
We'll let go.
All right.
Sure.
Anything? All right.
Nothing.
All right. Cross-examine.
Thank you. Trooper Dodd? So where was Mr. Bennett when he received that citation?
In the center, whatever you like to call the circle, 71, or excuse me, at Hemlock Court at the end, the cul-de-sac loop.
Okay, and this cul-de-sac loop, is it a paved road?
It is.
And is it open to the public?
It is.
So you told him if he remained in a public area, he'd be given a citation for trespassing?
He remained about or in front of any private residence. If he was on a private residential road, this is a public roadway, but he was in front of a specific residence which was targeted for this vigil event.
Okay. And so what's picketing mean?
picketing in the statute is defined as any action remaining about or in front of, passage in front of these, residences.
The statute defines picketing.
It does not in the statute define picketing. This is based on the guidance that we received from the State Attorney General's office.
So are you basing picketing on the guidance you received?
Yes,
And your guidance is repeated passage in front of a property is picketing?
obviously for either political or some sort of purpose further than just walking by,
Why, obviously?
because that's what picketing is.
Is that your definition or someone else's?
It's my interpretation.
So you're combining your interpretation with AG's interpretation?
Correct.
You said it was, would clarify it to be protesting or what?
I'm gonna object at this point.
I'm gonna agree. If you're asking him for a legal conclusion, his interpretation doesn't matter at this point, and so you're calling for a legal conclusion. Let's move on with the facts.
So you told them marching would be fine?
There was some, excuse me, there was some question as to whether they'd be able to do a march instead. And based on the guidance that I received, I indicated, to my knowledge, that would not be an issue as long as it wasn't specifically targeted at any one individual residence.
Okay. And so you mentioned at some point they left the cul-de-sac and walked on a pathway, correct?
Yes,
And that pathway is open to the public?
it is to my knowledge.
Okay. And there's no signs anywhere saying no trespassing on that pathway?
Nope, to my knowledge, there's a public easement on that path.
And so someone cannot trespass on that pathway?
I'm gonna object, that is a legal conclusion as well.
No further questions, Your
All
Honor.
right, any redirect?
No, no.
All right, thank you. May this, trooper, be excused?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The state would call, Officer Kathleen O'Brien. You'll stand by that chair and raise your hand. Swear or affirm the testimony about the proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Proceed. State your name and spell your last name for the court.
That's Kathleen O'Brien, O-B-R-I-E-N.
And back in December of 2020, how were you employed?
I was the lieutenant for the Newfield Police Department.
Alright. And were you working on December 28th of 2020?
I was,
And did you get called to go to Hemlock Court?
yes.
Why did you get called to go there?
There was a posting on Facebook that advised of a candlelight vigil that was going to be held at 71 Hemlock Court that night.
Did you get a complaint from any of the people on Hemlock Court about that?
Eventually we did. We got a complaint from 2 of the neighbors.
Okay. And so, did you go down to Hemlock Court?
Yes.
What happened when you got there?
I was standing on a pathway that ran from the main street to Hemlock Court. And I could see, excuse me, one of my Newfields officers and the state police speaking with a group of individuals about, the town ordinance that was enacted,
Alright, where were they speaking to them?
in the roadway at the time.
You had to call in there?
In the cul-de-sac, yeah.
Okay. So what did you do?
So I just stood by and listened and kind of observed, and I could hear them yelling and getting louder, because they were, questioning the constitutionality of the ordinance.
Okay. Then what happened?
We got the first complaint, a noise complaint from a neighbor, Cindy Feenstra. that she could hear yelling from inside the
I
house.
didn't hear that.
It's just wide over there.
I'm gonna allow it, that's not necessarily offered for the truth of the matter, but it's part of why they responded to the call.
Okay. So continue.
So we got a call that
Yeah.
said that she could hear noise inside the house, so we went down to address the noise complaint.
Okay. So where did you go?
I walked down the path towards the cul-de-sac and just let them know, or let the individuals know that we did receive a noise complaint from a neighbor and that they need to keep the noise down or, they could be arrested for disorderly conduct.
All right. Did you get in, do you recognize anyone in the courtroom that you spoke with?
Yes.
Okay.
A couple.
All right, well, you recognize him? And do you recognize, Skylar Tech?
I do, yes.
Where is he sitting?
He's sitting at the defense table in the gray shirt.
Okay. Was he one of the people that you told this?
Yes.
Did he respond?
I don't recall what he said necessarily.
Okay. So after you told him, you gotta keep down, you're gonna be charged with disorderly conduct, what happened?
The group decided to march, I guess, down the road, because they were advised again of the ordinance of standing, right in front of the governor's residence. So they marched down the road. I believe at that point, we got another call from a neighbor to the other side of the governor's residence, stating that they could hear loud noises
Okay.
as well.
So did the group march?
And came back towards the circle.
What happened when they came back?
They continued to be loud. They started to walk up the path towards the general store.
Okay. What happened on that?
They paused on the path. They were videotaping us at that point. And I think one of them stated that they were just going to the general store, but they did pause on the path. And at that point, I don't remember who the trooper was, but somebody said, stop them, they're obviously targeting this residence, stop them, we're gonna summons them.
Okay. And so, what'd you do?
I took, I asked for IDs from, one of the individuals that I was standing near and issued a summons to that individual.
Did you notice, what happened with Mr. Bennett?
Yes, so they kind of, they listened to us, they gave us IDs, everything like that. So they were congregating on the pathway. They were told that if you don't step off the pathway, that was said to them several times. I believe that was said to them before, even at other demonstrations that they had been at, because the pathway on either side is private property. The path is not. We were issuing the summonses and Skylar was getting louder because he was angry that he was getting issued a summons, that people were getting issued a summons. He was yelling. I think he was demanding to know who a certain trooper was, and the trooper just wasn't saying anything, and he was demanding his name. And he was told to stay on the pathway, and he would step off. He just would step off the path. He wasn't walking around or anything. He would step off. He was yelling at this trooper, and he walked up towards the trooper to, I think, get his name tag or figure out who he was, because the trooper wasn't identifying himself. And, that's when he was arrested for criminal trespass for stepping off the pathway.
Okay. Did you arrest him?
No,
State trooper did?
yes.
Okay. Did everyone leave after they got the citations?
Yes,
And that was the end of it?
that was the end of it.
Okay. Thank you, nothing else.
Thank you. What does picketing mean?
I don't object,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would sustain an objection. It calls for a legal conclusion, counsel.
Alright, Your Honor, just for public purposes, my basis is that the statute, I've already addressed this in the motion to dismiss, but just to renew it, my argument is it's vague, but an officer cannot define it. My position is reasonable person would not know.
So noted for the record.
Thank you. Did you tell them what they can or can't do?
Did I personally?
Yes.
The one thing that I said was we had to keep the noise down, because,
Okay. So in regards to picketing, you didn't give any advice or anything like that,
I personally didn't.
personally?
No.
And so you testified this walkway it's an easement, it's public property.
The walkways, yes.
Next to the walkway, is there a fence?
No.
Next to the walkway, is there no trespassing sign?
No.
And so you your testimony was he stepped off the walkway because a trooper would not identify himself.
He was, looking for the trooper's name, I believe, that was my thought.
And do you know how wide this walkway was?
I don't know off the top of my, I mean, I could speculate, but maybe 3-4 feet wide,
And do you know how far he stepped off the walkway?
no. He stepped off of it, I don't remember exactly.
Has to approach just 1 feet, yeah, and then probably this one has to have smart distance to. Kind of approach.
Yes.
And if I represent to you, this is a plot plan of the area. Would you agree this shows the area in question?
Yes.
Okay, and lot 13 would be Governor Sunu's property with this sidewalk walkway on it?
Yes, yep,
And this document says sidewalk to be 5 feet wide, see sheet 6. Okay.
okay, yes, yep.
Now I'm asked to submit this as an exhibit.
Any objection?
I
Okay,
could
it'll come in as. depends.
keep it for
Okay.
now in case.
Mark it. Is that all right?
Yes, thank you.
Rewrite, put an A on that for me, please.
A?
Yes.
Was Mr. Bennett given the citation, if you know, the citation for the picketing while in the cul-de-sac area?
I don't remember, I'm sorry.
He testified a bunch of people were congregating on that walkway,
Yes,
and were they stopped because an officer told them to stop?
at that point, yes, they had stopped previous to that as well.
Thank you, nothing further.
Can you redirect? Thank you. May this officer be excused?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
State Paul Sergeant Cooper. Please stand by that chair and raise your right hand.
Good morning.
Raise your right hand, swear or affirm testimony about giving this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Proceed. State your name and spell your last name for the records, please.
Stephen Cooper, last name is spelled C-O-O-P-E-R.
And back in December of 2022, how were you employed?
With New Hampshire State Police as a patrol sergeant out of Troop A.
And on December 28th of 2020, at about 5:30, did you go to Newfields?
I did.
Where'd you go?
Originally, we were went to stage at the Newfields DOT sheds right off of 108 for a briefing in regards to the vigil that was going to happen at the governor's house.
Okay. And so eventually, did you go down to the Hemlock Court and the governor's house?
I did.
What happened when you went down there?
We were requested by Lieutenant Hennessy to respond because one of the roles was for the team that I was with is to respond down there when arrests of crowd management needs to be made.
Okay. And so when you went down there, what did you see?
So upon arriving on site, I had my team form up, we moved forward. There was a few law enforcement officers in the general area where the path is to the governor's house. The governor's house is, by looking at it, is on my left, pathway would be on my right. We moved forward, there was a group of protesters there with law enforcement, and we moved forward. I met up with Sergeant Sherrill, Jesse Sherrill.
Okay. What happened?
He explained that several individuals were issued town ordinances, and there was one individual that had already received the town ordinance that refused to leave, and he directed us to take custody of that individual.
All right, and is that individual in the court today?
Yes.
Point off one.
It's the gentleman next to the attorney with the gray, it's either mechanic or motorcycle type shirt on with a beard.
Okay. What did you do?
I turned to my group that was assigned to the arrest team, pointed out the individual and advised them to arrest that individual.
Okay. Did you partake in the arrest?
I did not, I was just there to oversee everything, make sure everybody in the general area, to include the arrestee, was safe, and the arrest was done, and then we moved down to the Newfields cruiser, and he was handed over to the Newfields Police Department and transported to Newmarket for processing.
Thank you.
Last exam?
Thank you. So is it ultimately your decision to have Mr. Bennett arrested?
It was not my decision, it was Sergeant Sherrill's decision. He's the one that directed us. The reason why I was there and responded, because one of the roles that my team had was to respond either for crowd management or arrest. So prior to us getting there, there's a determination after those town ordinances were issued that arrest needed to be made. So we were instructed to move down to that area, and meeting up with Sergeant Sherrill, he pointed out the individual, which is your client, that individual needs to be arrested.
Because he didn't leave after being given a citation?
That was my understanding, yes. He refused to leave after being given the citation and to leave.
Thank you. Approximately how many police officers were there that night? Between state police and local?
I mean, there's probably over a dozen.
It's fair to say there were more police officers than, using your word, protesters.
I don't remember.
I anticipated an objection, but what is picketing mean to you?
Objection.
Stay.
Thank you. Nothing else, Sharon? It is what it speaks.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Same question, Mark.
And Heinz, do you want to take a minute?
Yes, Your Honor, if I could.
Let's take a
Thank
brief
you.
recess for 5 minutes, please.
Please stand.
Thank you. I'm not gonna talk to you. No, I'm serious.
Oh yeah, don't say anything.
No, I'm not gonna say anything to you.
I mean, just whatever happened, of course, and you're recording, so it's. Yeah.
I will say it's on recess right now.
I mean, I don't wanna know anything.
I know.
It is what it is, we got it all on video, everybody knows what happened. So.
Got this really weird sculpture thing here. It looks like they piece skin together. That's what it looks like to me. This weird skin art.
Doesn't it? That is the weirdest thing.
Yeah, it's weird skin art. It's creepy. I wonder when Hannibal Lecter came in here to do this. Like literally, you can throw shit against a wall and call it art. I'm guessing they'll be going back in any
They
second.
have poop bar.
A poop?
Poop paint.
Poop
They
paint.
use different types of poop paint.
Oh, that they do that in prison, right?
Yeah.
They paint on the walls. They call them painters.
Everyone can come back in. You've already testified, you've been excused.
All right, we're back on the record. And the state has arrested, Attorney Hunt.
Your Honor, the defense was arrested, I have to have a brief closing.
Yes.
So Mr. Ben is charged with 3 counts, one being disorderly, one being trespassing, and the third being this town ordinance for picking. In regard to disorderly, the state's own witness said she could not testify who was on the complaints. Very specific that they have to show not only that there was a disturbance, but who testified. And specifically, that person has to be a civilian, cannot be a police officer per State v. Murray, so the complaint correctly identifies the person. But their own witness said they didn't see who was in fact disorderly. She was in her house the whole time. This was night. So I suggest the state possibly not to be entitled to a directed verdict, but at this point, on the burden being the state has to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. They didn't come close to doing that. In regards to the trespassing, the first element of that case, well, moving on, second element is that he was not privileged. There's been no testimony that he was not privileged to be wherever this is, that he happened to be trespassing. The testimony is conflicting. Someone said he was trespassing for being in a cul-de-sac that's open to the public. The next evidence was he was on a, I'll call sidewalk, or on a pathway. Officers agreed that that is an easement, it's a public right of way, people are allowed to be there. When the officers testified, it says off it briefly, there's no fence there, there's no trespassing signs there. So I would suggest that the trespassing falls in those regards. I would suggest they would need someone who owned the property, either the governor or his wife, or someone with a valid interest in that property to tell someone, to prove to the court, is their burden to show that he was not privileged or licensed to be in that area. And to make trespassing a misdemeanor, to raise it from a violation level offense, the state would have to show that someone, either the property owner or someone, I'll check the exact way, or staff check, I believe it's the word license, but let me just make sure I'm using the right word. Under 365-2-3B, person knowingly enters or remains in any place in defiance of an order to leave or not enter, which was personally communicated to him by the owner, which we don't have here, or by the authorized person. I don't think we have any evidence that there's an authorized person. An officer gave it, but the officer, there's been no testimony that the officer is authorized to say who's allowed to be or be or not. I still don't know what this property is they was trespassing on. Whatever it is, they just failed that element. Finally, the element of knowing, I don't think they showed that. The testimony was he was on a cul-de-sac, he was on a right-of-way. To whatever extent he might have stepped off the right-of-way, we don't know how far. And again, the state's burden to show that. Really, I think a reasonable person would believe that they were not actually trespassing. In regards to the picketing town ordinance, a lot of my arguments were made in motion to dismiss, that was denied, but putting that aside, what is picketing? Here, there was no sign for the picket. They were there for a candlelight vigil. They were giving very conflicting evidence by officers, apparently partially relying on AG's opinions that they could, that what is picketing is repeated passage among a property. I mean, if I'm walking my dog and I circle the block a few times, I'm out picketing in a residential area. Second, that they would be allowed to march. That's clearly not defined anywhere, but they were in fact marching. So I think by the officer's own interpretation or using their guidance, that element wasn't met. And finally, in regards to residents, I would note that this was specifically Governor Sunu's house that they were cited for. I suggest that Governor is a very special case that should fall outside of the statute when it's the highest official in the state. That if, besides being just a First Amendment issue, it's one of addressing grievances, such as this is not an ordinary residential house. It does travel along with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. The disorderly conduct, the civilian witness testified she was disturbed by the yelling and screaming. She doesn't know who was yelling and screaming. However, other witnesses do. You heard from several police officers that it was Skylar Bennett who was making loud noises at the beginning and making loud noises right near the house when he got arrested, when he was yelling at the police officer, the trooper, to get his name. And so we have established that he was making loud noises, which did disturb a person of average sensibility, Cindy Beanstra. As far as trespassing is concerned, he was given the town ordinance at the beginning. They could have arrested him the second he didn't leave. They could have arrested him when he was walking down the street, when he came back. He was ordered to leave after he got his citation, and he didn't. So it doesn't matter where we arrested him or where he was going. He was in defiance of an order issued to him by a law enforcement officer who is authorized to do so. He was told to leave, and he didn't. So then, he finally was arrested because he continued to stay in defiance of an order to leave. As far as the tower ordinance is concerned, it was clearly targeted towards the governor. It's not walking your dog up and down the road. There was a posting where going to the governor's house to have a candlelight vigil. Clearly, the governor was the target. Where did they walk? All around the governor's house. In fact, up that path, right next to the governor's house. So clearly, we've established all three complaints beyond a reasonable doubt.
All right, thank you. So with that, I am gonna take the matter under advisement, review my notes. I'll likely listen to the testimony again and apply it to the law and the facts as I find them, and I will issue a decision. Thank you all for today. Thank you. Thank you.
I have to resubmit my. Yeah, I think you don't object to that being like, I just.
Oh, yeah, no.
add it back in. Yeah, I just wanted to.
Okay, so she got you right.
Yes, thank you.
All right, what do you want to do? Yeah, definitely.
Hey, you know what my favorite part was? When the newly sheriff lady here threw her own colleague under the bus and said that he wasn't identifying. Yeah. That's a policy violation right there.
He was bragging on Facebook that he was retired before this event even happened, so he shouldn't have been there to begin with.
I think you should file a complaint against that officer.
We can't find him. We don't know who he is.
Dude,
He
still
wouldn't identify
file
himself.
it. Still file it.
Targeting so when you're given a ticket, it says, you violated the town laws, now you have to leave.
Negative. No, you can't just give them a ticket. Even Frank Staples on that video says, yeah, that's how the law works. Once you're given a ticket, you gotta leave. Frank knows the law.
Were we talking about trespassing law?
Yeah.
You have to be asked to leave before you're trespassed. Like to get criminal trespass. I should know. I won a lawsuit against Manchester.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is still on.
Yeah, we're all done.
We're all done?
Yeah, so she's looking under advisement, so she'll issue her decision probably next couple weeks.
I'm just curious. Why didn't you bring up that she didn't that she basically knew what the policy was about identifying? Like Skylar has the right to pursue to find out the officer's name and badge number. And if him not doing that, he's in violation of his own policy. So he has the assurance to keep going and asking until he gets it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I don't think there's a remedy for violating the policy, unfortunately, is part of the problem. But
It goes on their record, you know.
yeah, I mean, she did agree. Her testimony was he asked, and it wasn't given to him. I mean, she did testify to that.
But it's like, so if you continue to pursue it, now you're in violation, you get the ticket or whatever charges, you know what I mean? So he had the right to go and pursue that as much as he wanted because the cop is in violation, which I love how the sheriff threw him on a bus.
If you bring it up, it shows that he went further outside of the
Yeah,
public
trying to
area,
not-
which
He didn't go outside of the
then goes against.
There's easements on either side of that sidewalk, though.
Well,
I believe that even when you have signs that say no trespassing, it's still considered like public, like you still have the right to go on the property. It's such a weird thing in here in New Hampshire.
The trees are what
Yeah,
divide
because-
the property
Well, the
line.
property line is not defined.
Okay.
That's the bottom line. Property
And
line
there's
is-
no trespassing sign. So you can't say he trespassed on anything. Sununu never came out and said he had to leave. Nobody said he had to leave.
Another thing too is like there's a fence on Sununu's property and they weren't mentioning it.
That's what I said.
Yeah, so it's like if there was an area that he was cording off for people not to go,
Yep,
They
that's
never asked
clearly
us
his
to
private
leave. What do
property.
you
yes.
mean? How are we trespassing on public property? That's ridiculous. Nobody asked us to leave. They entrapped us. Did you guys raise an entrapment defense? Because they made us walk. They made us march. We were there for a candlelight vigil, not for some bullshit march.
Have a good day, guys.
We were there for a candlelight vigil. We were not allowed to. And Article 30 says that any complaint or anything cannot be the foundation. And this is 100% a First Amendment protected activity. So that was a violation
Raised
of
that
Article 30.
argument, yeah, she denied that, but certainly revealed the First Amendment. So, yeah, that's why we're trying to get out, that they can't even define what.
trial over with, the judge will decide.
All right.
I think you had good closing argument there.
Yeah.
I think so.
Nice meeting you guys.
Yeah.
You too.
Thank you.
We'll probably get a decision next
Did Ian leave? Ian leave?
I don't see that's too much of a tyrant. Like a crush.
I am a tyrant.
I know you're a tyrant.
He said it on camera.
I
That's
don't
great.
care. I know you're a tyrant. You don't have to tell me. We got it on video. All your actions.
Go.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be famous.
You already are. You're a star on my channel.
Am I?
Oh yeah, you should go see the comments.
Do you get a lot of hits?
Hey,
Does pretty well.
not monetized either, because I have my own income.
Hey, you might as well monetize it. Everyone else does.
I could, but no, I have my own income. I don't need to monetize it. I do it for different reasons. Because it takes away from my credibility if I try to monetize it. Get it?
No.
I don't. No, I
of course
wouldn't.
not. You wouldn't.
I'm gonna disagree because I'm monetized.
Yeah, it's fine.
It pays for me to go into things like this. The more they're tyrannical, the more I can afford to come because they give me it. You guys give me hits.
Who admits that they're a tyrant?
I know, I got it on camera, bro.
I'm a tyrant.
He literally admitted to it.
He's like, I'm a tyrant. I'm a tyrant. Yeah.
You guys did great.
Thanks for showing up, brother.
Of course, of course. I'll have this online later.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I'll share the shit out of it.
Guys, thanks for watching. Yes, this hat never came off in court.
And stay free, baby.
Yeah. I'm not taking my hat off in court. Fuck that. I didn't even stand up for that tyrant.
That's crazy. They didn't say anything about your hat.
It's funny, the gum chewer sheriff, remember the gum chewer?
Yeah.
He was in there. He was telling me to take off my hat last time. And then my lawyer's like, take it off. And I'm like, oh, god damn it. I know you're not going to represent me if I get fucking arrested right now. All right, guys. Signing off.
Savage Truth 603, baby. Like, share, and subscribe. Stay
Absolute defiance. Fuck around and find out, yo.
Fuck around and find out. Peace out. Yeah, guys, look at this is my press pass.
Were you
It's
live?
like, no, we're not live. My press pass, Joa, and then I got my shiny badge. He was looking at this for a minute. Shiny badges don't grant extra rights. Thanks for coming in and recording. All right, y'all. Peace out. Check it out, guys. I'm at the Bitcoin Embassy in New Hampshire. This is where the first Bitcoin ATM was ever installed here in New Hampshire. And check it out. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. Let's see what today's Bitcoin price is. 51,187. Dash is at 203. Check it out, guys. Very cool. And this embassy is right next door to the Mighty Moose Mart. Oh, cool, guys. I can buy my drink with AnyPay. I just bought something with AnyPay here at the Mighty Moose Mart. That was freaking awesome. Oh, so you're a peace-loving individual, too?
Damn fucking right! Peaceful, loving individual here. You better arrest them. And I'm as mad as fucking hell, and I'm not gonna take your fucking occupation anymore.
They pulled out the anchors we put in there.
Yeah, check out. This is serious damage. This is like
Oh yeah, they damaged.
grand theft right here, guys. Grand theft. They pulled it right out of the fucking floor.
That worked out better than it could have.
Ain't over yet.